If there's a Scream 7, I will be there. Well, here we are. Welcome back to the Smith Notes, everyone, and today it is time for Let's Talk About Scream 7, released in 2026. Yes, if you don't, my intro was basically, that is what I said at the end of my video about Scream 6, nearly 3 years ago. And for anyone who's interested in what I had to say about Scream 6, that will be linked in the description. But now on to Scream 7. So, Scream 7 is definitely not one of the best movies in the franchise. It's just not. Straight off the bat, I'd say, well, the Scream 1 and Scream 2, definitely better than it. Scream 5 and Scream 6, also better than it. So it's in the realm of Screams 3 and 4, for me, on where it lands. Does it go below, or does it go right to the bottom as the worst in the franchise? Some people are saying it is the worst. Does it go just above Scream 3 but below Scream 4, or does it go just above Scream 3 and 4? I'm not so sure. But it wasn't a bad movie. It certainly wasn't a bad movie. So the Scream franchise continues its record of not having a single bad movie. It just has some movies that are a lot better than the others. So, every Scream movie has a theme. The theme of Scream 1 is the rules of a horror movie. The theme of Scream 2 is how to do a sequel. The theme of Scream 3 is how to close out a trilogy. The theme of Scream 4, how to do a remake. Theme of Scream 5, how to do a requel. Theme of Scream 6, how to continue a franchise. And now, Scream 7 is all about nostalgia. That is the theme of Scream 7. So when I see people calling this movie nostalgia bait, it's like, that's kind of the freaking point. That's why there's so many things that we're seeing from the previous movies. This movie is nostalgia bait on purpose. That's the idea. So, did the movie go pull a Scream 5 and have the characters we see right at the beginning of the movie not killed off, or would it do everything would it continue how the first 4 movies did it and also Scream 6 did it? It follows the usual formula of one or two people being killed right at the beginning of the movie. So I actually have to give the marketing team for Scream 7 a very huge amount of credit, because they make it through the posters and the trailers. They make you think that the climactic finale of Scream 7 takes place at Stu Macher's house from the original, even though the finales of the first and 5th movies already did that. But no, Stu Macher's house is very much involved in this movie, but at the very beginning of the movie. As Ghostface kills the couple that go to Stu Macher's house for some sort of horror attraction retreat, I guess. Scott and Madison. Scott is very much enthralled by the fact he's at the Stu Macher house, and there's loads of white outlines of people specifically in the positions where each person in the finales of the 1st and 5th movies were killed. So there's Billy's outline is just outside the closet where Sidney came out and stabbed him with the umbrella, and then of course shot him at the end. There's the outline of Amber's body after she was torched through with the cooker hob and then shot at the end of the 5th movie. There was Stu's outline of under the TV that was smashed on his head at the end of the 1st movie. And Stu actually plays a huge role in this movie. a lot of this movie focuses on the theory that Stu Macher never actually died at the end of the first movie. Bearing in mind, this movie is 30 years after the original now. We're 30 years deep into this franchise. And the theory goes that, did anyone ever actually see Stu's body end up at the morgue? No, they didn't. So a lot of the movie is on the theory that Stu actually survived the end of the first movie and has been in hiding ever since. This theory seems even more reasonable now, because throughout the movie, Sidney keeps getting calls from Stu, which is like, he's been dead for the last 30 years. Why? How the hell is he calling her? So he ends up calling Sidney at the coffee shop that she now works at after she moved away from Woodsboro to a new place called Pine Grove. Stu calls her, and obviously in the Ghostface voice going, "Hello, Sidney." And she's thinking, are you fucking serious? Another one? But then he calls her on the PC she's using and FaceTimes her, and it's Stu. Sidney can't believe what she's seeing, as Matthew Lillard reprises his role as Stu Macher 30 freaking years after he played him in the first movie. And he FaceTimes her quite a number of times throughout the movie, which builds more and more evidence that maybe, just maybe, Stu is actually still alive. Now, the kills in this movie are, just like in Scream 6, the kills in this movie are pretty brutal. I mean, the couple in the beginning, at the start of the movie, Scott and Madison, Scott just gets slashed to death by Ghostface, like a normal Ghostface kill, but Madison is holding onto the chandelier in their entrance hallway after running away from Ghostface, going through one of the usual horror movie chase scenes. She's trying to wrap her leg around like the wooden railing to pull herself back onto the second floor, but she can't do it after Ghostface has been thrown over the railing. So he's lying directly below the chandelier, and Madison ends up falling off letting go of the chandelier. So she lands. So Ghostface has his knife lying down, just like this, holding his knife, pointing directly up at her as she lands straight on his knife. Then he burns the whole house down, which is part of the thumbnail. What you saw in the thumbnail is him about to light her on fire after dousing her in gasoline. And I've seen people saying that the opening of the movie doesn't really play any part or into the rest of the movie, but it absolutely does, because when this is the first movie in the franchise where we've had 3 different ghost faces. Scream 6 was the first time we had 3 people working together, 2 ghost faces and a mastermind. This time round, we have 3 ghost faces. One of them is this guy called Carl, who shows up at Sidney's coffee shop earlier on in the movie, looking quite menacing. He's the first he's a ghost face that sneaks into Sidney's house, but he gets run over by none other than Miss Gail Dam Weathers herself. This is how Gail shows up, making Courtney Cox the only on-screen actor in the entire franchise to have appeared in every Scream movie. She's the only one. Roger L. Jackson is the only other person that has appeared in every Scream movie, but of course we don't ever see him because he's the voice of Ghostface. He also plays Mojo Jojo in the Powerpuff Girls, which is like his other very well-known voice acting role. So he plays two villains, but very, very different villains. So Gail shows up, and she only would have done that because it was on the news about the two people that killed, about Scott and Madison's being killed in at the beginning of the movie. So to try and figure out where Stu is, they even try and bait him into calling them after he doesn't call for a while. This is after some more death has happened. So now we get on to another large portion of the movie is about. Sidney's, shall we say, frosty relationship with her daughter, Tatum. Now, her daughter is of course named Tatum because Tatum was Sidney's best friend in the original movie. She was also the sister of Dewey. So yeah, Sidney named her daughter after her best friend. And those two don't have the closest mother-daughter relationship, shall we say. Sidney doesn't really approve of Tatum's boyfriend, Ben. And I mean, he literally climbs through her bedroom window after the opening of the movie has happened, and we get to the characters we're going to be seeing for the whole movie. He literally climbs through her bedroom window. Literally does a Billy Loomis. And Sidney doesn't trust him because she doesn't really trust anybody anymore. I mean, because of what's happened to her over the last 30 years. Kind of makes sense why she trusts very few people. She basically and Tatum really wants to know more about what happened with Sidney over all these years. But Sidney is doing her very best overprotective mother impression by trying to shelter and shield Tatum from all of these things. Which comes back to bite her in the ass later on, when Tatum just isn't ready for a Ghostface attack. Because she hasn't ever been part of one before, whereas Sidney's been part of plenty. So the first kill of the movie that isn't part of the opening is actually really a brutal one, but it delivers an incredible camera shot at the end. So Tatum is in her school's theatre production, doing a play where for some reason she's wearing a freaking big dog mascot costume for some reason. And her friend Hannah is dressed as some sort of fairy, and she's in this I really don't know what to call it, but you know how in theatre productions someone is being pulled around all across the stage above it, whether it's wires or some sort of mechanism, whatever it is, basically that. She's in that, and Aaron, one of the other guys who's working it, he's in charge of moving the mechanism around, lifting it up, down, and swinging it around. He gets killed off screen by Ghostface, but we hear him get stabbed and fall to the ground. Before Ghostface turns all the lights off, then turns on the middle stage light, which comes from the back of the room, pointing directly at the middle of the stage, on Hannah, before he starts swinging her around, and she can't get out of her pulley mechanism. She can't get out of it. So Ghostface delivers a kill by slashing her arm, then slashing her leg, then slashing her stomach, before standing right in the middle of the stage, waiting for her to swing straight into his knife, as her intestines go spilling out all over the stage. And the camera shot that looks incredible, and if you've seen the movie, you know exactly which one I'm talking about. Because it's of Hannah swinging very, very lightly from left to right with the stage light beaming on her. It's such an incredible camera shot. Over the last couple of years, I've learned to appreciate how filmmaking is done more than I did when I was younger. And that's one of the ways I appreciate it more. Why would the cinematographer choose to do that specific camera shot in this scene? I understand that a bit more now. But after Hannah's death, Sidney realizes that GhostFace is not messing around. And when Gale shows up, this guy, Lucas, who is part of Tatum's friend group, he basically is when he sees Gale, he starts getting all excited because it's the Gale Weathers in the flesh. So she starts questioning him about does he like horror movies and things like that. And his mom, Jessica, is not very happy with it. She feels like she's interrogating him. So after a few more people have been killed, Gale and Sidney decide that, Sidney decides that she'll give Gale Weathers the thing that Gale's been wanting from her for the last 30 years. An interview. So Gale starts interviewing Sidney, trying to bait Stu into calling them, which doesn't happen, of course. As soon as the cameras go off, and as soon as the cameras are cut, that's when Stu decides to FaceTime Sidney again. Only to realise that Stu has never actually been in this movie. He is dead. He did die at the end of the first movie. Stu hasn't actually been here at all. It was AI all along. Which also gets Tatum suspicious of her boyfriend because she gets into his car after running away, after breaking a curfew that had been introduced. She gets in Ben's car, looks at his laptop, and he has a program on his laptop of being able to AI himself into looking and sounding like Stu. So that makes her suspicious, only for Ghostface to then kill Ben. So obviously it's not him. Now, this is so weird because this movie does the best and worst of something at the same time. It does the best at being able to be making the audience have literally no idea who the Ghostface killer is, because every time there's any sort of evidence that it could be someone, the person who it could be gets killed pretty much straight after that. And that happens continuously. Now, Chad and Mindy actually make a return in this movie, which I was not expecting. After the producers fired Melissa Barrera, who played Samantha in the two previous movies, for weighing in on the Israel-Palestine conflict, listen to Ricky Gervais for once in your life. If you know 2020 Golden Globes speech, if you know, you know. And Jenna Ortega also didn't return in this movie, partly due to the same thing, in support of Melissa Barrera, but also because she was very busy filming season 2 of Wednesday at the same time that Scream 7 was being made. But Chad and Mindy show up again, and just like in the previous two movies, Mindy's the one who explains what the theme of the movie is, being nostalgia. As much as Chad tries to stop her from doing so, she still says it anyway. Those two actually get attacked by Ghostface, but of course they survive, because the whole legacy characters can die rule seems to only ever have applied to Dewey, and that's it, because no other legacy character looks like they're ever going to die. But when it comes to the actual reveal, the Ghostface reveal at the end of the movie, it makes no freaking sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Because the killers, the two Ghostface killers, are Jessica, who is basically an obsessed Sidney fan, who basically feels like she can't get that out of her mind until Sidney is killed, because Sidney is the final girl. And she's never been killed. And the other one is this psychiatric ward doctor, who literally gets about less than 5 minutes of screen time throughout the movie, who basically says that Stu is suddenly this guy called John Doe, who happened to spend a lot of time with Carl, who was the Ghostface killer that Gale ran over earlier in the movie. And basically, like, his reasoning makes no... He has no connection to Sidney. It makes no sense why he's the killer, but it still makes very little sense about Jessica as well. I'm pretty sure Jessica kills her own son because one of the Ghostfaces kills Lucas. It's probably his mom. Lucas probably got killed by his own mom as Ghostface. But why I say it's the best and the worst, it's the best at the fact that it makes you keep guessing throughout the whole movie who the Ghostface killer is, giving very little away. But at the same time, it's the worst reveal in the series by far. The only other bit of nostalgia bait we get just before that is when Sidney arrives back at her house, because that's where she realises that's where Tatum has been taken by Ghostface. After trying to explain to how to use a gun and to shoot Ghostface, which she does, but forgets the key rule of shoot him in the head to make sure they're dead, which she doesn't. Sidney arrives back at the house, and every TV in her house turns on by itself. And we have Stu, one more time, making a cameo. We have Billy Loomis's mother, Nancy, who was one of the Ghostface killers in the second movie. Then we have Roman, Sidney's half-brother, and one of the Ghostface killers from the third movie, also make a cameo. And in all of this, Sidney's husband, Mark, gets brutally attacked by Ghostface, almost dies, but he just barely manages to survive this movie. Just. Then the psych ward doctor is killed quite easily. Sidney then fights with Jessica before her and Tatum finally get the better of Jessica. But of course, they always come back for one last scare. So Sidney and Tatum absolutely blast Jessica's face off, shooting her in the head like 10 times between them, to where her face is completely melted off because it's been shot so many times. So this movie did not have a conclusive ending, as in this is definitely the last one. Scream 6 had a more conclusive ending to the series than what this movie did. And this movie, basically, there's pretty much the green light for a Scream 8 has already happened, so there's probably going to be a Scream 8 at some point. Maybe in 2029 or 30. But yeah, that is Scream 7. It was this little disappointing movie, because it certainly isn't as good as the original two, or the last two we've had. But it's nowhere near as bad as what some people are saying it is, saying it's the worst in the franchise. Some people saying they'd have rather they just brought back Stu from the dead, but no, you'd have still been complaining because that retcons something that happened. Because that's now retconning something that happened 30 freaking years ago. But yeah, it was a good movie, but not great. And delivering the worst Ghostface killer's reveal in the entire series by a long, long way as well. such a bad reveal because it made no sense whatsoever. But that's going to do it for Scream 7. If you guys have enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, join us back here next week for the 300 subscriber celebration video. Thank you everyone so much for that. But until we meet again, I will see you in the next one.